At 16, my cousin accused me of SA after she was caught smoking. Police handcuffed me, my parents threw my stuff at the porch, and disowned me. 10 years later, she spiraled into addiction, confessed the truth, and my father suddenly wanted the son he'd thrown out. Hey Reddit, my parents picked someone else over me, kicked me out, and I learned real fast how to survive on my own. I built a life anyway, but years later the past decided it wasn't done with me. So here's how it actually started. My name is Caspian. I was 16 when this started. I lived at home with my parents, Scott and Genesis, in a quiet place where nothing ever really happened. I didn't have a job yet. I was still in school, still doing the normal teenager routine. Go to class, come home, stay in my room, play games, hang out with my friend Mario. That was basically my whole world. My cousin Iris lived with us too. She was 15. She'd been in our house for as long as I could remember, because both her parents died when she was little. Her dad was my dad's brother. Her mom was my mom's sister. Same last name on both sides. Same blood, same tragedy. After everything happened, there wasn't even a discussion. Iris came to live with us, and that was that. From the outside, people probably thought it was nice. Family stepping up, doing the right thing. Inside the house, it didn't feel like that. It felt heavy, like everything had to be handled carefully all the time. Scott and Genesis treated raising Iris like a responsibility they could not mess up. Not just parenting, but fixing something broken. They were always worried about saying the wrong thing, pushing her too hard, letting her feel unwanted. Every rule came with an explanation. Every argument ended with them backing off. If Iris got upset, everything stopped. I learned pretty early that the easiest way to keep the house calm was to stay out of the way. Iris and I were never close, not even a little. We didn't fight constantly or anything dramatic like that. We just existed in the same space. Different rooms, different lives. She had her own friends, her own stuff going on. I stayed in my lane. I never hung out with her, never texted her, never went out of my way to be around her. If anything, I avoided her because being in the same room always felt awkward. Scott and Genesis watched everything I did around her. It wasn't obvious at first, but it became obvious over time. If Iris was in the kitchen, my mom would suddenly need to be there too. If I walked past her room, my dad would ask what I was doing. Little things like that. Nothing said directly, just constant awareness. I didn't think much of it back then. I figured they were just protective. I figured it came with the situation. But it still changed how the house felt. I stopped bringing friends over as much. I spent more time in my room. That was my space. My door closed, headset on, controller in my hands. That's where Mario came in. Mario was my best friend. We'd known each other since middle school. He came over all the time because his house was loud and mine was quiet. He knew the layout of my room better than I did. He didn't care about the tension. He just showed up, dropped his backpack, and asked what we were playing. Mario never treated Iris like anything special. He barely noticed her. He'd nod if he saw her in the hallway, and that was it. That alone made being around him feel normal. Most nights, Mario and I were in my room. Same setup. PS4 on the desk, 2 controllers, headsets tangled together. The window cracked open because the room got hot fast. We played a lot of different games, but Black Ops 3 was the main one at the time. Multiplayer, yelling at the screen, getting mad for 5 seconds, then laughing about it. Those nights felt normal, like the rest of the world didn't exist. Outside my room, the house ran on Iris's emotions. If she was quiet, everyone walked lighter. If she was upset, Scott and Genesis went into full damage control mode. I could hear it through the walls sometimes. Low voices, my mom comforting her, my dad saying things like, "It's okay," and "You're safe here." No one ever asked me how I was doing with any of it. I didn't resent Iris for living with us. I didn't blame her for what happened to her parents. That would have been messed up. What I resented was how invisible I became, how easily I faded into the background. Scott used to talk to me a lot when I was younger, about school, sports, random stuff. Over time, those conversations turned into quick check-ins. Genesis was the same way. Always busy, always tired, always focused on keeping everything balanced. I learned to keep my head down, get decent grades, don't cause problems, don't give anyone a reason to stress out more than they already were. Iris got older and started testing limits, sneaking out, pushing rules, getting into stuff she wasn't supposed to. When she got caught, it was always handled quietly. Long talks behind closed doors, no yelling, no punishments that stuck. I noticed. I didn't say anything. Irsabafm B. Mario and I were mid-match. Both leaned forward like that mattered. The room was dark except for the screen and the desk lamp. The PS4 hummed under the TV stand. Mario was talking about some missed shot. I was focused on the map. A door opened downstairs. Fast. Then Genesis said Iris's name. Once. Like it was a warning. I muted my headset again. Mario kept talking, not noticing. Scott's voice answered hers, low and furious. And then Iris said something I couldn't make out. Too fast, too thin. The smell hit a second later. Skunk burnt and sweet at the same time. It didn't belong in our house. I stared at my screen like I could pretend it wasn't happening. Like it would stay downstairs if I didn't acknowledge it. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. The door slammed open. Not a knock. Not a warning. It hit the wall hard enough to bounce. Scott stood there holding a hammer. The garage one. Like he'd grabbed the first heavy thing he saw just to keep his hands busy. He didn't look at me. He looked straight at Mario, like Mario was the only thing stopping him from doing something worse. Go home. Now. He didn't want anyone here for what came next. Mario froze. He looked at me, then back at Scott. What's going on? Mario said. Now, Scott said again. Mario stood slowly. He set the controller down carefully, like it might break just from moving. He grabbed his backpack and walked past Scott. When he reached the doorway, he looked back at me. I'll text you, he said quietly. Scott didn't respond. The moment Mario disappeared down the hallway, Scott stepped into the room. Dad, what? The hammer came down on the PS4. Plastic cracked. The screen went black instantly. Stop, I said, stepping forward. He hit it again, harder. The console slid off the stand and hit the floor. Pieces scattered across the carpet. What did I do? I said. Scott turned and grabbed me by the neck. Not choking, just tight enough to lock me in place. You don't get to play dumb, he said. He dragged me out of the room. My feet slipped. My shoulder hit the doorframe. I grabbed his wrist, more out of reflex than anything else. I don't know what you're talking about, I said. He didn't answer. We went down the stairs fast. I missed a step and stumbled. My head hit the railing. By the time we reached the living room, my heart was pounding so hard I felt sick. Genesis was on the couch, crying. A small plastic bag twisted in her fist, like she didn't know whether to hide it or throw it. Iris was beside her, shaking. Her face was red, eyes swollen. Scott shoved me forward and let go. Look at him, Scott said. Look at what he did. I didn't do anything, I said. Genesis looked up at me like she didn't recognize me. Stop, she said. Just stop. I don't understand, I said. What is happening? Iris kept her face against my mom's shoulder. Scott pointed at me. How long? What? I said. Genesis pulled Iris closer. Don't, she said to me. Don't talk. Iris lifted her head. She stayed behind my mom. Only her arm moved. Her finger pointed straight at me. He touched me, she said. The room went quiet. What? I said. He did things to me, she said. Her voice shook. I was scared. That's not true, I said immediately. I never... Enough, Scott said. I took a step forward. I didn't. I swear. I don't even... Genesis stepped in front of Iris. Don't you dare, she said. Don't you dare say another word to her. It happened more than once, Iris said quietly. I looked at my parents. Please, I said. This isn't real. Genesis turned away and grabbed her phone. I'm calling the police, she said. No, I said. Wait, you can't just... They need to hear this, Scott said. I sat down on the floor because my legs stopped working. The wait felt long and short at the same time. Genesis started spraying some air freshener around the house. Scott paced. Iris cried softly. No one looked at me. When the police arrived, everything shifted again. They separated us immediately. One officer stood with me near the doorway. Another spoke quietly with my parents. I couldn't hear what Iris was saying, but I could see her hands shaking. An officer turned to me. We're going to need you to come down to the station. What? I said. You're not under arrest, he said. We need to ask you some questions. So why are you doing that? I asked when he took out the cuffs. For everyone's safety, he said. His voice didn't change. Like it was a sentence he'd said 100 times. I was handcuffed anyway. Not tight. Still cold. Outside, the lights from the cars flashed against the house. Neighbors stood on their porches, pretending not to watch. The ride to the station was quiet. At the station, they put me in a small room. A table, 2 chairs, fluorescent lights that made everything feel unreal. My parents refused to be present. They asked the same questions over and over. Did you touch her? No. When did it happen? It didn't. How many times? Never. They wrote things down anyway. Why would she say this? One of them asked. I don't know, I said. I barely talked to her. They asked where I was on certain days, what rooms I'd been in, whether anyone else had been home. I answered everything. Hours passed. I didn't know how many. Eventually, one of them said, "We're done for tonight." Am I going back? I asked. Yes, he said. For now. The words didn't feel reassuring. They brought me back just before sunrise. The ride was quiet. No radio, no small talk. One of the officers said someone would follow up later, like that was supposed to mean I still had a place in the world. When the car stopped in front of my house, the porch light was on. That was the first thing I noticed. Then I saw my stuff. It was all piled near the steps. Not neatly, not packed, just thrown together like someone had cleared a room in a hurry. My backpack, a couple of hoodies, shoes without their boxes, a laundry basket with clothes still in it. My school binder bent in half. One of my old jackets was half hanging off the pile, dragging on the concrete. I stood there for a second, trying to understand what I was looking at. Then it hit. I got out of the car. The officer got out too. He didn't say anything, just followed a few steps behind me like his presence might keep the porch from turning into a scene. I walked up the steps slowly. Each one felt heavier than the last. I set my bag down and reached for the door. Locked. I knocked once. Harder than I meant to. Nothing. I knocked again. After a few seconds, the door opened just a crack. The chain was still on. I could see part of the hallway behind it. Same paint. Same picture on the wall. Everything looked normal. Scott was on the other side. Genesis stood behind him. Neither of them looked surprised to see me. The officer spoke first. Calm, professional, like he was trying to keep it from becoming personal. Sir, ma'am, he's a minor. Are you refusing to allow him back inside? Scott didn't hesitate. Yes. Genesis wouldn't meet my eyes. This isn't his home anymore. My throat tightened. What? Scott's face hardened. You can't come back. The officer paused, like he wanted to argue and knew it wouldn't matter. He looked at me instead. All right, he said quietly. Then I'm going to have to document this. And we're going to have to make some calls. I leaned closer to the gap in the door. I didn't do anything, I said. You didn't even listen. You didn't ask. Scott's jaw clenched. Don't. Genesis finally looked at me. Her eyes were red. Her voice was flat. Take your things and go. That's it? I said. You're just... Go, Scott said. The door closed. The chain slid. The lock clicked. I stood there staring at it, waiting for it to open again, waiting for someone to say this was too far, that they needed time, that this was temporary. Nothing happened. The officer offered me a shelter card, but I didn't take it. I turned back to the pile on the porch. Everything I owned was right there, or at least everything they thought mattered. No pictures, no childhood stuff, just clothes, school things, and whatever they grabbed first. I carried it all to my car in trips. Each time I went back up the steps, I half expected the door to open. It never did. The last thing I picked up was my jacket. I shook it out and noticed one of the sleeves was torn. I didn't remember when that happened. I put it on anyway. When the trunk was full and the back seat was packed, I stood there with my hand on the door handle and looked at the house one last time. Same windows, same porch light, same place I'd lived my whole life. I didn't leave because I was ready. I left because there was nowhere else to stand. I drove without thinking too much about direction. I just went. Streetlights turned into empty roads. Houses thinned out. The sky started to lighten. After a while, I checked the clock. I'd been driving almost 2 hours. I pulled into a random parking lot near a closed store and shut the engine off. The silence felt loud. My phone buzzed once. A text from Mario asking if I was okay. I didn't know how to answer that, so I didn't. I reclined the seat as far as it would go. It wasn't much. My legs didn't fit right. My neck bent at a weird angle. I stared at the ceiling of the car until my eyes burned. Sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the door closing, heard the lock, felt the weight of those words again. When I finally drifted off, it was shallow and broken. I woke up stiff and cold. My phone battery was low. I checked the time and realized school had already started hours ago. The thought barely registered. None of that felt real anymore. I drove again, just to move. Parked somewhere else. Sat there. Ate nothing because I didn't feel hungry. By the time night came back around, I knew I wasn't going home. There wasn't a version of this where that happened. I parked on a side street where a few other cars were already lined up. I figured it was less noticeable that way. I folded my jacket into something resembling a pillow and tried to get comfortable. It didn't work. Every noise made me sit up. Passing headlights, someone walking by, a car door closing somewhere nearby. My body stayed tense like it was waiting for someone to knock on the window and tell me I didn't belong there either. At some point, I realized this was the first night of my life where no one knew where I was. No one was waiting for me. No one expected me back. I stared at the dark windshield and tried to make sense of how fast everything had collapsed. I didn't come up with an answer. I just lay there, in the driver's seat of a car filled with everything I owned, realizing I didn't have a place to put any of it. The second night in the car was worse than the first. My body hurt in places I didn't know could hurt, from just sitting wrong. My phone battery was almost dead. I kept the screen dim to save it, checking the time and then locking it again. I moved the car twice that night because I didn't feel safe staying in one place too long. I didn't know where people were allowed to park, or how long before someone noticed. I learned fast that you stop trusting quiet once you're alone in it. By morning, I smelled like the inside of the car. I washed my face in a gas station bathroom and tried not to look at myself too long in the mirror. My clothes were wrinkled. My eyes looked wrong. I skipped school because I didn't even know where I'd explain being late from, let alone everything else. The second day blurred together. I drove around without a destination, mostly to keep moving. I parked near a strip of small businesses because it felt less exposed than neighborhoods. That's where I saw the cafe. It was small. One of those places you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. The sign was old and faded. In the window there was a piece of paper taped up that said they needed help. No details, just that. I sat in the car for a while staring at it. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even know what I was going to say. I just knew I couldn't do another night like the last two. Inside it smelled like coffee and bread. There were a few tables, all mismatched. A guy behind the counter was wiping something down. He looked tired, but not mean. I told him I was looking for work. He looked me over. My clothes, my hands, my face. I expected him to say no. I was already bracing for it. He asked how old I was. I told him the truth. He sighed, then nodded toward the back. Said I could help for the day and they'd see how it went. That was Julius. He didn't ask questions I couldn't answer. He didn't ask why I needed work so suddenly. He showed me where things were and told me what needed cleaning. I worked like it mattered, because it did. I wiped tables until my arms hurt. I took out trash. I did dishes. I didn't talk unless I had to. When the shift ended, Julius handed me some cash and told me to come back the next morning. That night, I slept in the car again. Still uncomfortable. Still tense. But different. I had somewhere to be when I woke up. The next few weeks followed the same pattern. Work, car, repeat. Julius paid me under the table at first. I didn't ask questions. I didn't complain. I showed up early and stayed late. Eventually, one of the regulars mentioned a room for rent above a garage. Cheap, small, no lease. I checked it out that same day and moved in the next morning. It wasn't much. A bed, a dresser, a small bathroom. But I could lock the door. I could sleep flat. I could leave my stuff somewhere without worrying it would disappear. Once I could sleep flat again, I handled the other thing I'd been avoiding. I got my diploma equivalent and didn't tell anyone from my old life. It took time, but I did it. It wasn't a celebration. It was a door I refused to leave locked. That mattered more than I expected. Time passed. I settled into a routine. Work in the mornings, cleaning, prep, helping wherever needed. I didn't talk about school. I didn't talk about home. Julius didn't push. 5 months went by before I called Scott. I didn't do it on a whim. I thought about it for days. I rehearsed what I'd say while wiping counters and washing mugs. I told myself I wasn't asking to come back. I just wanted him to hear me. I called after work one night. I stood outside my room with my phone pressed to my ear. He answered. I said his name. There was a pause. Then his voice went sharp. What do you want? I just wanted to talk, I said. I didn't do what she said. Stop calling, he said. I'm working, I said. I'm doing okay, you're not part of this family anymore, he said. Don't call again. I tried to say something else. Anything. He hung up. I stood there for a long time holding the phone like it might ring again if I waited. It didn't. That was the moment it settled. Not the night I left. Not the porch. Not the car. That call. I stopped expecting anything after that. I stopped wondering if they'd reach out or if things would change. I knew where I stood. I went to work the next morning like usual. Mario stayed in my life through all of it. He didn't push questions. He checked in. Sometimes he showed up at the cafe and sat quietly until my shift ended. Sometimes he just sent a message asking if I ate. He never asked me to explain. He never asked me to forgive anyone. He just stayed. Months turned into years without ceremony. I learned the cafe inside and out. I learned what Julius noticed and what he didn't. I learned how to keep things running without making noise about it. I didn't go back to my parents' house. I didn't hear from them again. And after a while, I stopped waiting. 10 years passed without any clean dividing line between before and after. I was 26 when it finally mattered. By then, the cafe wasn't just my job. It was the thing my days were built around. I opened early. I closed late. I knew which machines made which sounds when something was wrong. Julius didn't hover anymore. He trusted me to run things without checking behind me. When he told me he wanted me to manage another branch, he didn't make a big speech about it. He just said he needed someone steady, someone who wouldn't disappear when things got hard. I said yes, and we moved on. At some point during those 10 years, Scott and Genesis officially adopted Iris. I didn't hear it from them. I heard it from Mario, who still lived closer to that town and still ran into people who talked. That same week, Mario texted me. It wasn't dramatic. No warning, no buildup. Hey, random, but my parents ran into yours. They caught Iris smoking weed. That was it. She still lived with them then. Same house, same rules, just older enough to pretend they weren't rules. No explanation, no follow-up. Just a fact dropped into my phone like it didn't carry 10 years of weight behind it. I didn't respond right away. I finished my shift, locked up, went home, sat on my bed and read the message again. I hadn't thought about Iris in a long time. Not actively. She existed somewhere in the background of my life, like a closed file I didn't open anymore. An hour later, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. I let it ring once, twice. Then it stopped. A minute passed. It rang again. I answered without saying anything. Caspian. Her voice was thinner than I remembered. Not shaky in a dramatic way. Just tired. I shouldn't be calling you, Iris said. I know that. I didn't answer. They caught me, she said. With weed. That's why Mario texted you. I waited. They were yelling, she said. Asking questions. Saying they didn't recognize me anymore. And she took a breath that sounded like it hurt. And she stopped. I couldn't do it again. Do what? I said. Lie. She didn't say the word, but it hung there anyway. I need to tell you something, Iris said. And I need you to hear it from me. I didn't move. I didn't interrupt. I accused you because I panicked, she said. I was high. They caught me and I thought I was going to lose everything. She talked faster after that, like slowing down might make her stop. I didn't think about what would happen to you. I just needed it to stop. And when the police showed up, I didn't know how to take it back. My jaw locked. I told myself it was too late, she said. Every year after that, it felt worse, but I still didn't say anything. I stared at the wall across from my bed. I let them throw you out, she said. I watched it happen. My grip tightened around the phone. They adopted me later, she said quietly. I let them do that too. I didn't respond. I told them everything tonight, Iris said. About that night. About lying. About why. I closed my eyes. They know now, she said. They know they were wrong. Wrong. 10 years reduced to one word. I don't expect anything from you, she said quickly. I just needed you to know. I couldn't keep carrying it. I let the silence stretch. Caspian, she said. I'm sorry. I didn't say I accepted it. I didn't say anything at all. She waited a few seconds longer, then the line went dead. I sat there with the phone still pressed to my ear long after the call ended. Another message came in from Mario a few minutes later. She told them everything. They're not okay. I didn't reply. Later that night, Mario called. He didn't talk much. Just confirmed what I already knew. When Iris confessed, it didn't come with yelling or excuses. It came with collapse. Mario said Scott sat down like his legs gave out. Mario said Genesis cried and kept saying my name like she was trying to see if it still belonged to someone. They asked where I was. Mario told them he didn't know if I wanted to be found. He didn't offer anything else. That part was true. I went to work the next morning like usual. I opened the cafe. I checked deliveries. I went over schedules with the staff. Julius asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. Nothing in the world around me changed. But somewhere else, a lie that had lasted 10 years finally broke apart. It just existed now, sitting between what happened and what could never be fixed. Iris went to rehab a few weeks after the call. It wasn't framed as a choice. Scott and Genesis didn't trust her anymore, and they didn't know what else to do. The weed incident opened up a lot of things they hadn't wanted to see. Patterns, lying, how often she was high, who she was spending time with, how long it had been going on. Rehab became the answer because it sounded like responsibility, like action. I didn't hear about it from them. I heard it from Mario. He didn't ask me what I felt. He just told me what was happening. A few days later, Iris called again. I almost didn't answer. When I did, she sounded smaller. Not fragile in a way that asked for sympathy. More like someone who had run out of room to hide. I'm in treatment, she said. They said I should try to make amends. I didn't respond. I know you don't owe me anything, she said quickly. I just wanted to ask. You don't have to say yes. Where? I asked. She told me. I said I'd think about it. I didn't go because I wanted closure. I didn't go because I felt bad for her. I went because there were things I had never said out loud, and I was tired of carrying them alone. The place was quiet in a way that felt forced. Clean walls, neutral colors, chairs arranged carefully like nothing bad was allowed to happen there. The kind of place built to soften hard truths. I checked in at the front desk and waited. When Iris walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked thinner. Her hair was pulled back in a way that didn't suit her. No makeup, no performance, just tired eyes and stiff posture. She sat across from me at a small table. Thank you for coming, she said. I didn't say anything. I know this doesn't fix anything, she said. I just... Stop, I said. She did. I leaned forward. You don't get to frame this like you're doing something brave, I said. You didn't tell the truth because you wanted to. You told it because you got caught again. Her face tightened. You didn't panic once, I said. You chose it. And then you chose it again every year after that. I was scared, she said. You were comfortable, I said. There's a difference. She opened her mouth and closed it again. You watched them throw me out, I said. You stood there. You heard what they said to me. You didn't say anything. Tears ran down her face. She wiped them away with the sleeve of her hoodie. I didn't think they'd do that, she said. You knew exactly what they were doing, I said. You let them erase me so you wouldn't have consequences. She shook her head. I was 15. And then you were 16, I said. 17, 18, 20. She looked down. You let them adopt you, I said. You let them replace me. You took the spot they emptied. I didn't ask for that, she said. You didn't stop it either. The room stayed quiet around us. No one interrupted. No one stepped in. I slept in my car, I said. I missed school. I figured out how to survive because I had to. You went home every night. She covered her face with both hands. You built a life while mine had to be rebuilt from nothing, I said. And now you want me to help you feel better about it. That's not what this is, she said, her voice breaking. I just want you to know I'm sorry. I know you're sorry, I said. That doesn't mean anything. She looked at me then. Really looked. Is there anything I can do? She asked. Anything at all. I stood up. You already did it, I said. 10 years ago. Her shoulders shook. She said my name, but I was already moving. I walked past her. Past the table. Past the carefully arranged chairs. I didn't look back. Outside, the air felt different. Less controlled. Less padded. I sat in my car for a moment with the engine off. Hands on the steering wheel. Breathing slow until my pulse settled. I didn't feel relieved. I didn't feel lighter. But I didn't feel pulled backward either. I drove away without checking the mirrors. That was the last time I saw Iris. I didn't reach out to Scott or Genesis after rehab. I didn't send a message. I didn't ask Mario for updates. I didn't respond to anything that came indirectly. Whatever they needed to say had already come too late to matter. Life kept its shape. I opened the cafe. I handled schedules. I dealt with broken machines and late deliveries. Julius trusted me enough to leave things alone. The new branch was close to opening, and most of my focus stayed there. That didn't stop Scott. He spent months trying to find me. I didn't know the details until later, but Mario filled in enough pieces for it to make sense. Scott went through old records first. School paperwork, old bank stuff, places I might have ended up if I stayed nearby. When that didn't work, he started asking people directly. Former neighbors, old co-workers of Mario's parents, anyone who might have crossed paths with me in the last 10 years. Most people didn't know anything. Some pretended not to. A few told him to stop asking. Eventually, all roads led back to Mario. Mario didn't give him my address, didn't give him my number. He held the line for as long as he could, but Scott kept showing up. At his parents' place, at old neighbors' doors, anywhere he thought a crack might open. Eventually, Mario gave him the one thing that felt less like betrayal than handing over my home, where I worked. He told himself I could decide what happened next once they were standing in front of me. That was the last piece Scott needed. It happened on a weekday afternoon. Not busy, not dead. Just steady enough that things were moving. I was behind the counter checking inventory when the door opened. I didn't look up right away. The bell rang like it always did. Footsteps came in slow and uneven. When I did look up, I knew immediately. Scott stood just inside the doorway. Genesis was behind him. They didn't look like I remembered. Scott's shoulders were slumped forward. His hair was thinner, grayer. His face looked smaller somehow, like it had collapsed inward over time. Genesis looked older too, tired in a way that wasn't just age. They stood there awkwardly, unsure where to go. Customers glanced at them, then back at their phones. Scott saw me and froze. I didn't move. He took a few steps forward. His hands shook slightly. "Caspian," he said. I nodded once. Genesis stayed near the door. She didn't say anything. Her eyes were already wet. Scott opened his mouth like he'd practiced something. Whatever it was didn't come out right. "I've been looking for you," he said. I waited. "I didn't know where else to go," he said. "I didn't know if you'd even want to see me." "I don't," I said. He swallowed. His voice broke. He cleared his throat and tried again. "I need to say this." Customers were starting to notice. Julius glanced over from the back, questioning. I shook my head slightly. He stayed put. Scott stepped closer to the counter. "I was wrong," he said. "I was wrong about everything." Genesis covered her mouth with her hand. "I failed you," Scott said. "I failed as a father." His voice cracked completely then. He leaned forward, gripping the edge of the counter like he needed it to stay upright. "I should have protected you," he said. "I should have listened." I didn't interrupt. "I let fear make the decisions," he said. "I let it turn me into someone I don't recognize." He wiped at his eyes with the back of his hand. "I'm so sorry," he said. The word hung there, heavy, inadequate. I looked at him for a long moment, not searching, just seeing. "I believe you," I said. His head snapped up. "That doesn't change anything," I continued. "You being sorry doesn't undo what you did." He nodded quickly. I know it doesn't. You erased me," I said. "You didn't hesitate. You didn't check. You didn't come looking. You decided I was gone, and you stayed with that." Genesis let out a quiet sound behind him. She didn't step forward. "I spent years thinking you were better off without me," Scott said. "I told myself that. And you lived fine with that," I said. He didn't answer. "There's nothing for us to fix," I said. "You don't get to step back in because the truth finally showed up." Scott's shoulders sagged further. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "I just wanted you to hear it from me." "You've said it," I said. I stepped back from the counter. "You should go," I said. "I'm working." Scott looked around like he was seeing the cafe for the first time. The tables, the staff, the place I'd built. Genesis finally spoke. "We never stopped loving you." I looked at her. "You stopped choosing me," I said. "That's what mattered." Scott nodded slowly. He straightened up as much as he could. "I won't come back," he said. "I promise." "I know," I said. He turned and walked toward the door. Genesis followed a step behind. She looked back once like she wanted to say something else. She didn't. The bell rang again when they left. The cafe settled back into its normal rhythm. I went back to the inventory list. My hands were steady. That night, Mario came by after closing. He didn't ask how it went. He just sat with me at one of the tables while I finished paperwork. "They showed up?" he asked eventually. "Yeah. You okay?" "I'm fine." He nodded. That was enough. We sat there in silence for a while, the kind that didn't ask for explanation. When Mario left, I locked up and turned off the lights. I stood there for a moment, looking at the empty room. The truth was out now. Everyone knew it. The lie didn't exist anymore. That didn't mean the damage disappeared. It just meant it had a name. I kept the life I built, the one that didn't include them. And that was the part no apology could touch. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.